The hemp rope cuts into my wrists as they drag me through the mud. I can feel every fiber of it grinding against my skin, rough and unforgiving, the kind of rope they use to tie livestock to fence posts. That is what I am to them. Livestock. Something to be penned and managed, and when it becomes inconvenient, put down. Rain hammers down on the clearing where 300 wolves have gathered, their eyes gleaming in the firelight, their collective breath rising like steam in the cold autumn air. I can smell their anticipation mixed with disgust as they part to let the guards haul me forward. The bonfire at the center of the clearing throws wild shadows across their faces, turning familiar features into grotesque masks. People I have known my entire life, people I have served, cleaned up after, bowed my head to. Now they watch me being dragged through the dirt like a criminal, and not one of them looks away. My bare feet scrape against gravel, and every sharp edge feels like a small punishment before the big one. The hem of my dress is so heavy with mud and rain that it drags behind me like a shroud. I have been wearing this dress for 3 days straight, the same dress I was sleeping in when they came for me in the barn. The same dress that still smells faintly of hay and horse sweat and the dried lavender I keep tucked under my thin pillow because the scent reminds me of him, of his hands, of the way he would bring me bundles of wildflowers and tuck one behind my ear and say, "There, now the barn smells like a garden." Kaylin, my mate, my husband, my everything. 6 months dead, and I still reach for him in my sleep. Bring the cursed one to the stones. Elder Aldrich's voice carries across the crowd like the crack of a whip against wet hide. The guards shove me forward, and I hit my knees on the raised platform so hard that pain shoots up through my thighs and into my spine. The cold stone bites through the thin fabric of my dress. I taste blood where I have bitten the inside of my cheek to keep from crying out. I will not cry out. I will not give them that. Aldrich stands above me. His silver beard catches the firelight as he steps closer, and his eyes are flat and cold. The eyes of a man who decided the verdict long before the trial began. He wears the ceremonial robes of the pack elders, dark gray fur trimmed with bone beads, and he carries the staff of judgment carved from the heartwood of the ancient oak that stands at the center of our territory. I have seen that staff brought out 3 times in my life. Each time, someone died. "You stand accused of the darkest magic," he intones, and his voice takes on the ritual cadence of formal judgment, of binding yourself to the dead, of refusing to let your mate's spirit pass to the ancestors, of cursing the hunting grounds and bringing death upon your own pack. The crowd murmurs, a sound like distant thunder rolling across the mountains, building and building with no sign of release. I lift my head. Rain streams down my face, into my eyes, mixing with something warmer that I refuse to call ears. I try to speak, but my throat is a desert. 6 months of grief will do that to you. 6 months of screaming into your pillow at night while the whole barn shakes with the force of your sorrow. 6 months of reaching across the cold bed for a body that is not there, of forgetting for one merciful second when you first wake up and then remembering all over again. And every morning the remembering hits like a fresh wound, as though grief resets itself in sleep and wakes up hungry. I remember the last morning, the morning he did not come back from the hunt. I was making breakfast, thin porridge from the oats I had traded my only warm shawl for, because winter was coming and Kaylin needed his strength for the hunting season. The barn door was open and autumn light was pouring in. golden and soft. And I was humming a song my mother used to sing before she died, before I was alone. Before the pack decided that an orphaned Omega girl was not worth feeding or clothing or educating or caring about in any way that might require effort. Then the hunting horn sounded. Not the 3 sharp blasts that meant a successful kill. One long, continuous note that went on and on until the sound became a physical thing pressing against my chest. One note. The death call. I dropped the bowl. I ran, barefoot through the forest, branches tearing at my arms, my lungs burning. I found them in the ravine. 4 hunters standing in a circle, their faces pale and sick, and Kalen on the ground with a gash across his chest so deep I could see bone. "Ilara," he whispered when I fell beside him. "Ilara, I am sorry. I am so sorry. Do not talk. Save your strength. Someone get the healer. Someone please get the healer." But the healer was for pack members who mattered, not for a low-ranking hunter mated to an Omega nobody wanted. By the time anyone bothered to send word, Kalen's hand had gone cold in mine, and the light in his gray eyes had dimmed to nothing. And the mate bond inside my chest stretched and tore like something vital being ripped from between my ribs with bare hands. The pain. I cannot describe the pain. They say losing a mate is like losing half your soul, and they are wrong. It is worse. It is like losing the half that made the other half worth keeping. I screamed until my voice gave out. I screamed until the hunters backed away from me, uneasy, as though grief were a disease they might catch. I held his body for 2 hours. I would not let them take him. I rocked him like a child and told him stories about the future we were supposed to have. The cabin we were going to build at the edge of the western woods. The garden I was going to plant. The children whose names we had already chosen on quiet nights when the world felt safe enough to dream. And before they pried him from my arms and carried him to the funeral pyre, I did the only thing I could think to do. I took his knife from his belt, the hunting knife with the carved handle that he was so proud of, and I cut a lock of his hair, dark brown, almost black, soft as river water. I pressed it against my face and breathed in, and it still smelled like him. Pine and leather and the faint sweetness of the honey cakes I used to make him on winter mornings. I braided the hair together that night, my fingers working by firelight while the rest of the pack celebrated his funeral with songs and stories I was not invited to share. I wound the braids around my wrists, one for each hand, and tied them tight against my pulse points where I could feel them with every heartbeat. A rhythm to replace the one I had lost, a small private ceremony of love that no one else needed to understand. But something happened, something I still do not understand. The first month, they were just braids, dark hair against pale skin, normal, harmless, a widow's keepsake. Then I started to notice. The strands seemed closer to my skin, tighter, as though they were sinking. By the second month, I could not slide a fingernail between the hair and my flesh. By the third, they were woven into me, literally interlaced with the tissue of my wrists. The boundary between his hair and my skin dissolved like sugar in warm water, and then the glow began. A faint silvery blue light, pulsing in perfect rhythm with my heartbeat. When I was calm, it was barely visible, a whisper of luminescence that I could only see in total darkness. When I was afraid or angry or overcome with grief, it flared bright enough to cast shadows on the barn walls. I hid it. Of course I hid it. I wore long sleeves. I wrapped cloth bandages around my wrists and told anyone who asked that I had burned myself on the cooking fire. No one cared enough to question it. No one cared enough to look closely at me at all, until 3 hunters died in the western woods last month, until the pack needed someone to blame. Remove her sleeves, Aldrich orders now, his voice cutting through my memories like a knife through old cloth. Rough hands grab my arms. A guard extends his claws and slices through the thin fabric with a sound like tearing paper. The cloth falls away and the crowd gasps. Some recoil as though I have shown them something obscene. Others lean forward with the morbid fascination of people watching a house burn down. The bindings glow in the rain, silvery blue, pulsing, alive. Look at her. Kaylin's mother pushes to the front of the crowd, and the hatred in her face is so raw, so visceral, that it makes me flinch. She spits. The saliva lands on my cheek, warm against the cold rain, and I do not wipe it away. My son died because she would not let his soul rest. She trapped him. She is using his spirit for her own dark purposes. I want to scream at her. I want to say, I loved your son. I loved him more than you ever did, because I loved him for who he was, not for what he could hunt or how he could serve the pack. I held him while he died. Where were you? But grief makes you quiet. Grief makes you swallow your own tongue. Abomination, someone whispers behind me. She has bound his spirit to her body. That is why the hunting grounds are cursed. That is why 3 more hunters have died. I did not. My voice finally breaks through, cracked and broken as old pottery. I do not know what this is. I just wanted something to remember him by. I just wanted to hold on to him. Liar, Aldrich says, and there is no hesitation in his voice, no doubt, no mercy. The hair of the dead carries their essence. You have created a tether. You have refused to release him to the ancestors. His spirit wanders confused and angry, causing death wherever it goes. No, Kaylin would never hurt anyone. He was the gentlest man in this pack. He fed the strays. He taught the pups to fish. He sat with the old ones when no one else would. I did not do this on purpose. I do not even understand what happened. Does not matter what you intended. Elder Marin speaks up, a woman with deep scars across her face and eyes that have seen too much to feel anything anymore. Her voice is flat, clinical, delivering the sentence like she is reading entries from a ledger. The result is the same. You violated the oldest laws. The punishment is death. Death. The word hangs in the air like a blade suspended above my neck. My heart pounds so hard I think it might break through my ribs. I can hear it in my ears, a wild drumming that drowns out the rain and the murmuring crowd and the crackling bonfire. Death. They are going to kill me for grieving, for loving someone so deeply that even my body refused to let go. I close my eyes, and in the darkness behind my lids, I see him, Kaylin, sitting by the fire in our tiny corner of the barn, reading to me from a book he borrowed from the pack library because he knew I never learned to read. They do not teach omegas in this pack. They do not teach us anything except how to be useful and how to be invisible. But Kaylin taught me. He taught me the names of the constellations, and how to mix herbs for healing, and how to tell when a storm was coming by the way the birds flew. He taught me that I was worth teaching. His voice, low and warm, turning every word on the page into something beautiful. The way he would look up and catch me staring and smile that crooked, boyish smile and say, "What?" And I would say, "Nothing." And we both knew it meant everything. 3 years. We had 3 years together. Not enough. Never enough. I opened my eyes, and I do something that surprises even me. I stand up. My knees shake. My wrists throb where the rope digs in. The crowd goes quiet, because Omegas do not stand at their own trials. Omegas kneel. Omegas beg. Omegas cry and plead and throw themselves on the mercy of elders who have never once shown them any. That is the script, and I have followed it my entire life. Every humiliation, every ignored request, every night sleeping on straw while pack members slept in warm beds. I followed the script because the script kept me alive. Not tonight. I did not trap his soul. My voice is still broken, still raw, but it carries. I make it carry. I force it out from the same place in my chest where the mate bond used to live, that hollow, aching space that has been empty for 6 months. I loved him. I held him while he died. I cut his hair because it was the only piece of him I could keep. If that is a crime, then yes, I am guilty. I am guilty of loving someone so much that I could not let go of even a strand of his hair. I am guilty of mourning. I am guilty of grief. And if you want to kill me for that, then do it. But do not stand there and tell me I harmed anyone. Do not stand there and call my love an abomination. Silence. Deep, shocked, absolute silence. Aldrich's jaw tightens. This was not part of his plan. The Omega was supposed to cry, to collapse, to make the execution feel merciful rather than cruel. My defiance makes the crowd uneasy. I can see it in their shifting eyes, their uncertain postures. For just one moment, they see me. Not an Omega, not a convenience. A woman standing in the rain, defending the only love she ever had. It will not save me. I know that. But at least I will die standing. The sentence stands, Aldrich says, and his voice is harder now, sharper, the voice of a man who needs to regain control. Prepare the pyre. She burns at midnight. The guards force me back to my knees. Rough hands push my face toward the stone, and the cold surface presses against my cheek like a goodbye. The rain is relentless. My bindings pulse and pulse and pulse. And I think of Rena, 2 weeks ago, a Tuesday. I found her behind the woodshed, curled into a ball so small I almost stepped over her. A tiny Omega child, maybe 5 years old, with matted hair and hollow cheeks, and a fever burning so hot that her skin felt like touching a stove. No one had noticed she was sick. No one had noticed she existed. Her parents were dead, killed in a border skirmish 6 months before. She had been surviving on scraps and creek water and the occasional kindness of strangers, except that kindness was not common in a pack that treated its lowest members like furniture. I carried her to the barn. I made a bed of clean straw and covered her with my only blanket. I brewed yarrow and elderflower tea the way Kalen taught me, the way he learned from an old healer who lived at the edge of the territory, and I spooned it past Rena's cracked lips through the night while her small body shook with chills. I sang to her. The same songs Kalen used to sing to me when the grief got so bad I could not breathe. I pressed cool cloth to her forehead and changed it every hour and talked to her even when she was too delirious to hear. By morning, her fever broke. She opened those enormous brown eyes and looked up at me with the kind of trust that children give freely and adults spend their whole lives trying to earn. "Are you my mother now?" she whispered. "No, little one. But I will take care of you. And now I am kneeling on cold stone, about to burn, and no one will take care of Rena. No one will brew her tea, or smooth the hair from her forehead, or tell her she is not invisible. The injustice of it burns hotter than any pyre they could build. Wait! The single word cuts through the chaos like a blade through silk. The crowd goes silent. Even the rain seems to quiet, as though the sky itself is holding its breath. Every wolf in that clearing freezes, because the voice that spoke carries something far more dangerous than volume. It carries authority, the deep, bone-resonating kind that does not ask for obedience, but assumes it as a natural law. I lift my head, water streaming into my eyes, and see a man emerging from the tree line. He is massive, easily 6.5 feet tall, with shoulders that could carry the weight of mountains. His dark hair is pulled back from a face that looks carved from granite, all sharp angles and fierce lines, a face designed for command and incapable of softness, or so it seems. He moves through the crowd like a predator through tall grass, unhurried but utterly purposeful, and every wolf in that clearing feels the shift. The air changes. The energy transforms. Something ancient and dominant presses against my skin like a change in atmospheric pressure before a storm, like the moment between the lightning flash and the thunder crack when your whole body knows something powerful is coming. He wears the black leather of the royal guard, but the insignia on his chest makes my breath catch. The crimson wolf. The king's own mark. No, not the king's mark. The king himself. This is Kale, Alpha King of the Northern Territories, ruler of 12 packs, commander of the largest wolf army on the continent, the man whose name mothers use to frighten disobedient pups and whose reputation precedes him like the shadow of a mountain at sunset. And he is walking straight toward me. The crowd parts like water before the bow of a great ship. Every head bows as he passes. Even the elders lower their eyes, though Aldrich's jaw tightens with poorly concealed resentment. Nobody speaks. Nobody breathes. The only sounds are the rain and the fire and the heavy, measured footsteps of a king who has already decided what he came here to do. Kale stops at the edge of the platform. His eyes fix on my face. They are the color of eyes, the color of autumn fire. And they see everything. I feel exposed under that gaze, stripped bare of every pretense and defense I have built over 23 years of being invisible. He is not looking at me the way the pack looks at me, not with disgust or pity or indifference, not through me, past me, around me. He is looking at me, the way Kalen used to look at me, like I am real. Like I am someone worth the effort of seeing. Release her. Your Majesty. Aldrich steps forward, his voice careful, diplomatic, coated in the oily deference of a man who despises the authority he is forced to respect. With all respect, this is a pack matter. Internal discipline. The woman has violated sacred law, and the council has ruled according to tradition. I said, release her. No repetition of argument, no justification, just the same two words delivered with the absolute certainty of a man who has never needed to say anything twice and will not start tonight. The guard's hands fall away from my arms so fast I nearly topple forward. The world tilts. My vision blurs. Rain and blood and exhaustion conspire to pull me down. And I am falling toward the cold stone. Then hands are on my shoulders, large and warm and impossibly gentle for someone so powerful. Kale has crossed the distance between us in a single stride, moving like liquid shadow, catching me before I hit the ground. His fingers close around my arms, and the contact sends a jolt through my entire body. Not painful, but profound, like grabbing a live wire made of warmth instead of electricity. The woven hair around my wrists flares brighter than it ever has, pulsing with silvery blue light so intense it illuminates the rain falling between us like a curtain of tiny diamonds. I gasp. He inhales sharply. His amber eyes narrow, locked on the bindings, studying them with an expression I cannot read. Not disgust, not fear, recognition, and something else underneath it. Something fierce and hungry that makes my breath catch for reasons I do not understand and am not ready to examine. How long have you had these? His voice is low, meant only for me, close enough that I can smell him. Cedar and something darker, like wood smoke after a storm, layered with a clean bite of winter air. The scent cuts through the rain and the mud and the blood and goes straight to some deep, primal place inside my chest that has been locked and empty for 6 months. 6 months since the day Kaylin died. And the merging. When did that happen? It was gradual. The first month, they were just braids. Then I started noticing they seemed closer to my skin. By the third month, they were part of me. He turns his head slightly, addressing Aldrich without taking his eyes off my wrists. You called this dark magic. It is dark magic. She has bound a spirit to her. She has done no such thing. Kyle's grip on my arm tightens fractionally, not painfully, protectively, the way you hold something precious that someone is trying to take from you. This is not spirit binding. It is spirit weaving, and it is one of the rarest gifts our kind possesses. There has not been a spirit weaver in 200 years. The crowd erupts in whispers. I stare at him, uncomprehending. I do not. What does that mean? Kyle finally looks at me directly, and the intensity in his gaze makes me feel like I am standing at the edge of a cliff, not afraid of falling, afraid of how much I want to jump. It means you are not cursed, Ilara. You are blessed. The hair did not trap your mate's spirit. It absorbed the echo of your bond, the love you carried for him. That echo has power, and you can wield it. Impossible, Marin interjects, but her voice has lost its clinical certainty. Spirit weavers died out generations ago. Then she is the first in generations, and you were about to burn her for it. He stands, pulling me to my feet, keeping his hand on my arm. He turns to face the crowd, and his voice shifts. It is no longer private, no longer gentle. It is the voice of a king addressing subjects who have failed a test they did not know they were taking, and the failure is unforgivable. I have been tracking the real cause of the deaths in your hunting grounds for 3 weeks. A rogue pack from the eastern waste, killing your hunters to steal territory. I have their scent markers and their kill patterns. This woman is innocent of every charge you have laid against her. He pauses. Lets that land. Lets the silence fill with shame. And beyond her innocence, let me tell you what I see when I look at this pack. I see an Omega who has been kept in poverty her entire life, who sleeps in a barn, who eats scraps, who was never taught to read, who nursed a sick child back to health with herbs she gathered herself because none of you could be bothered to notice a 5-year-old was dying of fever in your own territory. His eyes find Aldrich. The elder flinches. Do not stand before me and speak of sacred law. Do not speak of tradition. You have no tradition worth preserving if this is how you treat the most vulnerable among you. The silence that follows is devastating. Complete. I can hear individual raindrops hitting the stone. She is pack property, Aldrich manages, though his voice has thinned to almost nothing. Born and raised in our territory. You have no right to. I have every right. I am your king, and I am claiming jurisdiction over this matter. This trial is over. Ilara comes with me to the capital. No one objects. No one dares. He turns, guiding me toward the tree line with his hand still warm on my arm. My legs are shaking so badly I can barely walk. The world has tilted on its axis, and I do not know which way is up anymore. 5 minutes ago, I was going to die. Now I am walking away with the Alpha King of the Northern Territories, and the bindings on my wrists are glowing like captured starlight, and nothing makes sense. Nothing at all. But then he leans close, his breath warm against my ear, his voice dropping to something low and urgent that only I can hear. And what he says replaces my relief with a new and different kind of fear. Your power is growing faster than it should. The merging happened too quickly. If you do not learn to control it within one cycle of the moon, 28 days, it will turn inward. It will consume you and everyone around you. Do you understand what I am telling you? 28 days. That is all I have. I swallow hard. Then you had better be a good teacher. Something flickers in his amber eyes. Surprise, maybe, or the beginning of respect. I intend to be. We reach the edge of the trees and I stop. I turn back one final time. The clearing stretches behind me. The bonfire still burning. The platform still gleaming with rain. The crowd still standing in stunned, shamed silence. And there, at the very edge of it all, standing apart from the pack that never claimed her, small and alone and crying in the rain, is Rena. She lifts her hand and waves, a tiny gesture, fragile as a bird's wing, and she mouths something I cannot hear but understand perfectly. Come back. I press my hand against my chest, right over my heart, and hold it there so she can see. A promise, the most sacred kind. The kind you make to a child who has no one else. I will come back for you, little one. I will learn to control this power. I will become someone who can protect you. I will become someone worth coming back as. Then I turn away from the only life I have ever known. Step into the dark forest beside a king whose hand on my arm burns like a brand, and walk toward a future I cannot see and did not choose, but refuse to be afraid of. The rain does not stop. But for the first time in 6 months, I do not feel cold. We ride for 4 days. I have never been on a horse before. The first hour is a humiliation of bouncing and sliding and clutching at the saddle with fingers that cannot find a grip. The mare is enormous, black as a moonless night, and she moves with a rolling gait that makes my stomach lurch with every stride. I am certain I will fall. I am certain I will crack my skull on a root and die out here in the forest before I ever reach the capital. And the irony of surviving an execution only to be killed by a horse would be exactly the kind of joke the universe enjoys playing on people like me. Then Kale swings up behind me. His arms come around me to take the reins, and suddenly the world steadies. His chest is solid against my back, radiating heat that cuts through my wet dress and sinks into my bones. He smells like cedar and wood smoke and something deeper, something mineral and ancient, like the rocks at the bottom of a cold river. The scent wraps around me and I hate how much comfort it brings. I hate how my body relaxes against his without my permission, how my breathing slows to match the rhythm of his, how the tension I have carried in my shoulders for 6 months begins, just barely, to ease. Lean back, he says, and his voice is low and close and vibrates through his chest into my spine. Stop fighting the motion. Let the horse carry you. I lean back, just slightly. just enough that my shoulder blades press against him, and I can feel his heartbeat through the leather of his armor. Steady, strong, relentless, like a drum marking time in a world that has forgotten how to keep rhythm. "Comfortable?" he asks. "I have never ridden a horse before." "Then hold on, I will not let you fall." I believe him, and that frightens me more than the horse. The first night, we make camp in a clearing where ancient oaks form a canopy so thick that the rain barely reaches the ground. Kyle's guards are efficient and silent. 12 wolves in royal black, setting up tents and building a fire with the practiced ease of men who have done this 1,000 times. They defer to their king with a respect that goes beyond rank. I watch the way they move around him, alert but not afraid, loyal but not subservient, and I realize this is a man who has earned devotion rather than demanded it. A female wolf approaches me. She is tall and lean with kind eyes and intricate braids wound through auburn hair, and she carries a blanket over one arm and a bowl of stew in the other. "I am Bryn," she says, and her smile is the first genuine warmth I have received from a stranger in longer than I can remember. "Come with me. You look half frozen." She leads me to a tent and helps me out of the ruined dress. My skin is mottled with bruises from the guard's hands, and Bryn's jaw tightens when she sees them, but she says nothing. She gives me dry leggings and a soft tunic that is finer than anything I have ever worn, the fabric so smooth against my damaged skin that I almost cry from the simple kindness of it. I eat the stew. It is thick with venison and root vegetables and seasoned with rosemary, and it is the best thing I have tasted in months, maybe years. In the pack, Omegas ate last and least. Cold porridge, stale bread. Whatever the dogs did not finish. Kalen used to sneak extra food to me when no one was looking, wrapping bread and cheese in cloth and hiding it under his jacket. The memory surfaces without warning, and I set the bowl down because my throat has closed around a grief so sharp it draws blood. "You are safe here," Bryn says quietly, watching me with those kind, knowing eyes. The king does not make promises lightly. If he said he would protect you, he will. I do not even know why he cares. Bryn gives me a strange look. Something knowing moves behind her expression, a flicker of understanding that she chooses not to voice. He has his reasons, and they are better reasons than most. She leaves me to rest, but I cannot sleep. I lie on the bedroll and stare at the canvas ceiling and listen to the fire crackle and the low murmur of guards changing shifts outside. My wrists glow softly in the dark, pulsing with that steady, silvery blue light. I hold them up and watch the rhythm, and it occurs to me that this is all I have left of Kalen. This strange, inexplicable light, this warmth against my pulse, this echo of a love that was supposed to last a lifetime and barely lasted 3 years. "I miss you," I whisper to the empty tent. I do not understand what is happening to me. I do not understand any of this. The bindings pulse brighter for a moment, just a moment, and then settle back to their steady glow. I fall asleep sometime after midnight, and that is when everything goes wrong. The dream starts beautifully. Kalen and I sitting by a fire, his arm around my shoulders, his voice reading to me from that old book of poems he loved. I can feel him, warm and solid and real. His scent, pine and leather and honey, fills my lungs, and I think, this is it. This is where I want to stay forever. I never want to wake up. But then the fire turns blue, then silver, then white, so bright it burns. I scream, and the sound rips out of the dream and into the waking world. Energy erupts from my wrists in a shockwave that tears through the tent and hits the campfire like a gust of hurricane wind. The flames explode upward. The ground shakes. Trees groan and crack. Every guard in the camp is on their feet with weapons drawn in the time it takes me to open my eyes. And then Cale is there, inside the tent, his hands closing around my wrists, his skin against the glowing bindings, and the contact is like a circuit completing. The wild energy slams into him and he absorbs it, grounding it through his body into the earth beneath us. His jaw clenches with the effort. The muscles in his forearms stand taut as bridge cables. But he holds. He holds me steady until the last tremor fades and the light dims, and I am sitting in the ruined tent, gasping, shaking, terrified of what just happened. His hands are still on my wrists, his thumbs pressed against the bindings, and where his skin touches the woven hair, the glow shifts, warming from silvery blue to something softer, something gold-edged, as though his touch is changing the frequency of the light. Breathe, he says. Just that. One word. Low and calm and absolute. I breathe. Again. I breathe again. Good. You are all right. It was just a surge. The power is testing its boundaries. It will happen again, but we will be ready. He does not release my wrists. Not right away. His thumbs continue their slow, steady pressure against the bindings, and I become acutely aware of every point where his skin meets mine. The warmth of his palms, the calluses on his fingers, the way his pulse, where his thumb presses against my wrist, beats in a rhythm that is almost but not quite synchronized with the glow of the bindings. Almost, but not quite. As though they are two instruments trying to find the same key. Thank you, I manage. He looks at me then. Really looks. And in the faint glow of the bindings, his amber eyes are not the eyes of a king. They are the eyes of a man who understands exactly what it costs to hold yourself together when everything inside you is trying to fly apart. You do not need to thank me, he says. This is what I am here for. Then he releases my wrists and is gone, and I am left with the ghost of his warmth on my skin and a heartbeat that will not slow down. The next morning, Bryn finds me packing my bedroll and studying me with the expression of someone who has a secret she is enjoying entirely too much. The king sat outside your tent for 2 hours after the surge, she says casually, adjusting her sword belt. He sent everyone else back to their posts and sat in the rain like a gargoyle, listening to make sure you were breathing evenly. He was probably worried about another surge. Bryn tilts her head. In the 5 years I have served him, he has never let anyone ride his personal horse. He has never shared a saddle. He has never sat outside anyone's tent in the rain. She pauses, letting the words land. He lost his sister Lyra 5 years ago. Dark magic from the Shadowlands. She was 14. He found her body in the courtyard of the northern outpost. Since that day, he has been searching for a spirit weaver, someone who can reach across the veil and help him fight the darkness that took her. My chest tightens. So that is why he saved me, because he needs my gift. He saved you because of your gift, yes, but he sat in the rain because of something else entirely. She smiles and walks away before I can ask what she means. We reach the capital on the 4th day. I see it before we crest the final hill, a shimmer of light and stone on the horizon that grows with every step until it fills the entire world. The city sprawls across a vast plateau, buildings of pale stone and dark timber climbing over each other like vines on a trellis, and at its center the royal palace rises like a mountain made of marble and ambition. Waterfalls cascade down the cliffs behind it, their mist catching the afternoon sun in rainbow arcs that make the whole structure look as though it is dreaming in color. "It is beautiful," I breathe. "It is home," Kyle says from behind me, and I feel his voice in my ribs. "And now, it is your home too." The words settle into me with a weight I am not ready for. Home. I have never had a home. I have had the barn, which was shelter. I have had my corner of the straw, which was survival. But a home is something you belong to, and I have never belonged anywhere except in Kaylin's arms. We are greeted at the gates by officials and nobles who bow low and stare openly. The whispers start before we have dismounted. Who is she? Why is she here? Why is the king's hand on her arm? I keep my eyes forward and my shoulders straight and try to remember how to breathe in a world where everyone is looking at me when I have spent my whole life perfecting the art of being unseen. Kale leads me directly to the palace. The halls are lined with portraits of previous rulers whose painted eyes follow me with the same question everyone else is asking. The stone floors are so polished, I can see my own reflection, bruised and hollow-eyed and completely out of place. "Prepare the West Wing guest suite," Kale tells a steward who bows and hurries away. "Alara will stay there. She will have her own rooms, her own servants if she needs them, and full access to the royal library. I want her to begin studying the texts on spirit weaving immediately." I clear my throat. I do not know how to read very well. They did not teach omegas in my pack. Kale stops walking. He turns to face me, and the anger that moves across his features is not directed at me, but at every person who ever decided I was not worth educating. His jaw works. His hands flex at his sides. For a moment, the Alpha King looks like he wants to go back to that clearing and burn it down himself. "Then I will teach you," he says, and his voice is rough at the edges. "Every evening, after your training, I will teach you to read. You do not have to do that. You are a king. You have more important things to. There is nothing more important." He says it simply, without drama, without decoration. The way you state a fact about gravity or the direction of sunrise. And so it begins. The reading lessons. Every evening after dinner, Kale comes to the library where a fire burns in the stone hearth and candles throw warm light across shelves that stretch to the ceiling. He sits beside me, close enough that I can smell cedar and wood smoke, that his shoulder brushes mine when he leans in to point at a word on the page. His finger traces the letters, and his voice sounds them out with a patience that is almost painful in its gentleness. He is a different man in these moments. The authority falls away. The sharp angles of his face soften in the firelight. And sometimes, when I struggle with a word and finally get it right, he smiles, not the controlled, political smile of a king. A real smile, small and private and meant only for me, and it transforms his entire face into something achingly human. I start to look forward to the evenings. I tell myself it is because I want to learn, because knowledge is power and power is survival. But the truth is simpler and more terrifying. I look forward to the evenings because of the way his shoulder feels against mine, because of the way his voice wraps around the words and makes them feel safe, because of the way he looks at me when I am not looking, which I know only because sometimes I catch the tail end of it a gaze so intense and so careful that it makes my skin warm. I do not know what to do with this. I am not ready for this. Kaylin has been dead for 6 months. The hollow space where our bond lived still aches. And here I am in a candlelit library, leaning into the warmth of a man whose scent makes me dizzy and whose patience makes me want to weep. So I pull back. I create distance. I arrive at lessons early so I can choose a seat with space between us. I avoid his eyes during training. I keep my answers short and my walls high. Cale notices. Of course he notices. He notices everything, but he does not push. He does not ask. He simply gives me the space I am silently begging for. And somehow, that restraint, that quiet respect for my boundaries, makes me want to close the distance all over again. Then comes the night Serafina arrives. She appears in the dining hall on my 8th evening at the palace, sweeping through the doors in a gown of deep crimson that matches her perfectly painted lips. She is beautiful the way a blade is beautiful, sharp and gleaming and designed to cut. Her features are severe and aristocratic, her posture a masterclass in superiority, and she moves through the room as though she owns every stone in it. Cale, darling. She uses his old name, the informal one, and something about the familiarity makes my stomach tighten. You have been away too long. The court has been positively lost without you. Then her eyes find me, slide over me, dismiss me. And who is this? Ilara, Cale says, a spirit weaver, the first in 200 years. She is here under my direct protection. Serafina's expression does not change, but I feel the shift, a cooling of the air, a sharpening of attention. She looks at me again, more carefully this time, the way you examine an insect that has landed on your dinner plate. A spirit weaver. How extraordinary. Her smile does not reach her eyes. And she came from where, exactly? The Eastern Territories. The Silverpine Pack. Ah, a single syllable loaded with a novel's worth of condescension. I was not aware the Silverpine Pack produced anything of value. Careful, Serafina. I only mean, cousin, that the court will have questions. An Omega, living in the palace, under the king's personal protection. You must understand how that looks. The kingdom needs a queen with noble blood, political alliances, strategic value. Surely you cannot expect the council to accept. The council will accept what I decide. Will they? Serafina's smile sharpens. An Omega cannot lead a kingdom, Cale. She cannot forge alliances. She brings no army, no territory, no bloodline. I say this not to be cruel, but to be practical. The kingdom deserves a queen who strengthens it. The worst part is that she is not entirely wrong. I know this. I feel it in the hollow of my chest where confidence should live. I am nobody. I come from nothing. I cannot read. I cannot fight. I barely know which fork to use at dinner. What do I have to offer a kingdom? Cale's response is quiet, controlled, lethal. She has a gift that has not existed in 2 centuries. She has survived more than anyone in this room, and she has more courage in her smallest finger than most nobles have in their entire bloodline. Do not test me on this, Serafina. You will lose. Serafina's eyes flash. She smiles, inclines her head, and retreats with the graceful withdrawal of someone who has lost a battle, but not a war. As she passes me, her perfume hits my senses. Jasmine and something metallic underneath it. Something cold. And the bindings on my wrists go cold for just a fraction of a second. I file the sensation away. I do not know what it means yet, but I will. The next morning, Kale leads me deep into the palace, down stone stairs that spiral into the earth like the throat of some great sleeping beast. We emerge in a circular chamber with walls covered in ancient symbols that seem to pulse with their own dim light. The air here feels different, charged, heavy with the accumulated energy of centuries. "This is the spirit chamber," he says, "built by the first spirit weavers generations ago. The symbols amplify your connection to the spirit realm." He positions me in the center of a circle carved into the floor and steps back. "Focus on your bindings. Open yourself to whatever comes." What if I do it wrong? You cannot do it wrong. The power knows what to do. Your only job is to stop being afraid of it. I close my eyes, center myself the way he has taught me, matching my breathing to the pulse of the woven hair. In and out, in and out. The world falls away. The stone chamber dissolves. And then I feel them. Presences, dozens of them, surrounding me like a crowd of invisible witnesses, some curious, some protective, some so ancient that their attention feels like the weight of mountains pressing gently against my consciousness, and one that is achingly, devastatingly familiar. Kaelin. The presence surges forward, and suddenly I am not alone in my mind. I cannot see him, cannot hear his voice, but I can feel his essence wrapping around me like a blanket made of every good moment we ever shared. His love, his warmth, his quiet, steady devotion that asked for nothing and gave everything. Images flash, not my memories. His, a tall man with kind eyes, bending to examine a wounded deer. Laughter by a fire, the sound of it so real, I almost open my eyes. The feeling of running through moonlit forests with 4 legs instead of 2. The wind in his fur. The joy of the hunt. And then something else. Something directed at me. A feeling so clear and so deliberate that it cannot be mistaken for anything but a message. Live. Truly live. Not just survive. And underneath that, threaded through it like gold wire through dark silk, another message. Permission. Blessing. A gentle, loving push toward a future he will not be part of. Let me go. Not because you must. Because you deserve more than a ghost. The tears come. I cannot stop them. I do not try. They fall silently in the darkness of my closed eyes, and the bindings on my wrists burn with a fierce, protective warmth, and I understand finally what this gift is. It is not a chain. It is not a cage. It is a bridge. And Kaelin is on the other side, not trapped, not suffering, but at peace. And he is telling me to cross to the other side, to keep walking, to find joy again. I understand, I whisper. Thank you. Thank you. The presence recedes slowly, reluctantly, like the tide going out. Warm to the last. I open my eyes. Kael is kneeling beside me, concern etched into every line of his face. His hand hovers near my shoulder, not touching, waiting for permission. Are you all right? You were crying. I am better than all right. I wipe my eyes with the back of my hand and hold up my wrists. The bindings glow soft and steady, warmer now than before. I spoke with him? Well, not spoke exactly, but I felt him. And I finally understand what these are. They are not chains. They are a gift. Something shifts in Kael's expression. The concern melts into something fiercer, something that looks dangerously close to pride. You are remarkable. Do you know that? I am just learning. No. He shakes his head slowly. You are already remarkable. The learning just helps you see it. He helps me to my feet, and for a moment we stand close in the center of the ancient chamber, the symbols pulsing around us, the air charged with spirit energy and something else Something that has nothing to do with magic and everything to do with the way his hand lingers on mine a beat longer than necessary. But then I feel it, at the edge of my new awareness, a presence that is not Kaelin, not an ancestor, not anything warm or protective, something cold, something hungry, watching from the far side of the spirit realm with eyes that have no light in them. I pull my hand away. The sensation vanishes. "What is it?" Kyle asks, reading the shift in my expression instantly. "Nothing," I say. "I think. I am not sure." I do not tell him about the cold presence. I do not know how. I do not even know if it was real or if my overtaxed mind conjured it from exhaustion and fear. But the bindings on my wrists flicker, just once, and the light shifts briefly from blue to something darker. I store it beside the other warning, a growing collection of things I do not yet understand but cannot afford to ignore. The days settle into rhythm, training in the mornings, reading lessons in the evenings, and between them, a growing awareness of Kyle that I cannot suppress no matter how many walls I build. He is everywhere. In the training yard, watching my progress with those amber eyes that miss nothing. In the library, his shoulder warm against mine as we bend over the same page. In the corridors, where we pass each other and his hand brushes my arm and the contact sends sparks skittering across my skin. Then comes the nightmare. I wake screaming, the sound ripped from my throat before consciousness arrives. I am back on the platform. The rain. The fire. Aldrich's voice pronouncing death. The guard's hands on my arms. The rope cutting into my wrists. My door opens. Kale stands in the frame, dressed in sleep clothes, hair loose around his face. And for one unguarded second, he looks not like a king, but like a man torn from sleep by the sound of someone he cares about in pain. Ilara. I am fine. I am shaking so badly the bed frame rattles. I am fine. It was just a dream. He does not come in, does not cross the threshold, does not touch me. He lowers himself to the floor just inside the doorway, his back against the stone wall, his long legs stretched out before him. "You do not need to be strong right now," he says quietly. "I am here. Go back to sleep. You cannot sit there all night. I can do whatever I choose. That is one of the few privileges of being king." I want to argue. I want to tell him this is unnecessary, that I have survived 1,000 nightmares without anyone sitting guard. But the truth is that his presence in the doorway, solid and immovable, and choosing to be there, makes me feel safer than I have felt since Kaelin died. So I say nothing. I lie back down. I close my eyes. And when I open them at dawn, he is still there, back against the wall, chin dropped to his chest, asleep at last. His face in the early light is softer than I have ever seen it, the fierce lines smoothed by exhaustion, and there is a vulnerability in his sleeping form that makes my chest ache with something I am not ready to name. I watch him for a long moment, the way the light catches in his dark hair, the steady rise and fall of his breathing, the way his hand, even in sleep, rests on the hilt of the dagger at his belt, ready to protect even in dreams. Then I pull the blanket from my bed and drape it over his shoulders, carefully, so carefully, because I do not want to wake him, and I do not want him to know that this small act of tenderness is the most intimate thing I have done since Kaelin died. 2 weeks pass, my power grows, my confidence follows, slowly, like a plant turning toward the sun after a long winter. Kale announces a formal gathering, a feast to welcome visiting nobles and introduce the kingdom's new spirit weaver. Bryn helps me dress. A gown of midnight blue that makes the silver light of my bindings look like starlight against dark sky. My hair is braided in a style I have never worn, elegant and deliberate, and when I look in the mirror, I do not recognize the woman staring back. She looks like she belongs in a palace. She looks like someone who matters. Cale is waiting at the bottom of the grand staircase. He is dressed in formal black, the crimson wolf insignia gleaming at his chest, and when he sees me, his expression does something complicated. His lips part. His amber eyes widen, then soften, then burn with a carefully controlled fire that he banks before anyone else can see it. He extends his hand. I take it. His fingers close around mine, and the bindings on my wrists glow warm in response. You look. He stops. Starts again. The kingdom will know your name after tonight. At the feast, I sit beside him. He introduces me to lords and ladies whose names I cannot keep straight, and his hand rests on the table near mine, not touching, not quite, close enough that I can feel the warmth of his skin. He includes me in conversations, asks my opinion, defers to my knowledge of herbs and healing when the topic arises, and slowly, painfully, I begin to feel something I have not felt in a very long time. I begin to feel visible, but visibility has a price. Across the great hall, Serafina watches us with eyes that calculate and measure and plan. She smiles when others look at her. When they look away, the smile drops like a mask being set aside, and what lies beneath it is cold and sharp and patient. She is talking to a man I have not seen before. He stands in the shadows near the far wall, wearing a dark cloak with a hood that obscures most of his face. But I catch a glimpse of his eyes, and my blood goes cold. They have no pupils, just smooth, flat darkness from corner to corner, like stones polished by a river of shadow. The bindings on my wrists turn to ice, just for a second, just long enough for me to gasp and look down and see the glow flicker from blue to something darker, a color that has no name, a color that should not exist. Cale's hand covers mine immediately. What is it? That man, with Serafina. Do you see him? Cale looks. The man is gone. The shadow where he stood is empty. What man? He was there. I swear he was there. He had no pupils. His eyes were completely black. Cale's expression hardens, but he does not dismiss me, does not tell me I imagined it. I will have the guards search the hall. Stay close to me tonight. I stay close. His hand does not leave mine for the rest of the evening. Later, alone in my room, I sit in meditation and reach for the spirit realm. The connection comes easier now, a door I can open at will rather than a wall I must batter through. The ancestors are there, warm and welcoming. Kalen's echo pulses gently at the center of it all, steady as a heartbeat. But at the edges, in the place where light fades to shadow, the cold presence is back, closer now, watching with those empty, lightless eyes. And this time I hear something, not words, not a voice, just a sound, low and resonant and wrong, like a bell being struck in a frequency that makes your teeth ache. The vision hits me without warning. The palace in flames. The great hall shattered. Cale lying on the stone floor, still and pale, his amber eyes closed. And on the throne, sitting with the casual ease of someone who has been waiting a very long time for this moment, Serafina, her eyes completely, utterly black. I rip myself out of the meditation. My heart hammers. My wrists are flashing, not their usual steady pulse, but a rapid, frantic strobing, blue to red to that nameless dark color, and back again. A warning. Something is coming. something worse than anything I have imagined. And the deadline carved into my bones, 28 days, suddenly feels less like a timeline for training and more like a countdown to war. I press my palms against my eyes and breathe. 1 breath, 2, 3, 28 days, 14 already gone, 14 remaining. I have to be ready. I have to be strong enough. Not for me, for Kale, for Rena, for every person who ever looked at me and saw nothing. I will make them see. Serafina invites me to tea on the 17th day. The invitation arrives on cream-colored parchment sealed with her personal crest, a serpent coiled around a rose, and the handwriting is flawless. Every letter precise and deliberate, the penmanship of someone who was taught that even the smallest details are weapons. I owe you an apology, the note reads. I spoke harshly when you first arrived. It was beneath me. Please join me in the solarium this afternoon. I would like to start again. Bryn reads it over my shoulder and frowns. I do not trust her. Neither do I. Then do not go. But I think about Serafina's argument at the dinner, the one that buried itself under my skin like a splinter and has been festering ever since. An Omega cannot lead a kingdom. She brings no army, no territory, no bloodline. And I think about how the court watches me when Kale is not looking. The sideways glances, the whispered conversations that stop when I enter a room. Serafina is not the only one who questions my presence here. She is simply the only one with the courage to say it to my face. If I refuse her invitation, I am hiding. If I accept, I am trying, and I am so tired of hiding. I will go, I tell Bryn, but stay close. The solarium is a glass-walled room on the upper floor of the east wing, filled with potted ferns and trailing ivy that catch the afternoon light and fill the space with a green, living warmth. Serafina is already seated when I arrive, pouring tea from a porcelain set, so delicate it looks like it would shatter if you breathed on it too hard. She looks up and smiles, and the smile is perfect, warm, practiced. It reaches her mouth and her cheeks and stops just short of her eyes. Ilara, thank you for coming. Please, sit. I sit. She pours. The tea is amber-colored and fragrant, and when she slides the cup toward me, I notice her fingers are steady. No tremor, no hesitation. Whatever she is feeling beneath that polished surface, she has buried it so deep that not even her hands betray her. I was wrong about you, she says, lifting her own cup. When you first arrived, I saw an Omega from a backwater pack. I did not see what Kale sees. I am beginning to understand that was my failing, not yours. Thank you, I say carefully. The tea warms my palms. The scent is unfamiliar. Something floral layered with a sweetness I cannot name, cloying and heavy, the kind of fragrance that fills a room and makes it hard to distinguish anything else underneath. I want you to know that I support Kale's decision. If you are what he believes you are, then the kingdom needs you. And I would rather be your ally than your enemy. She sips her tea, watches me over the rim. Drink. It is a special blend, moon petal and white sage. Very calming. I drink. The tea slides down my throat, warm and sweet, and for a moment I feel a wave of relaxation so intense my eyelids grow heavy. The light in the solarium softens. The green of the ferns blurs at the edges. Serafina's face swims before me, her smile widening just a fraction. And something about that widening sends a needle of alarm through the fog settling over my mind. The bindings on my wrists flicker, dim, like a candle caught in a draft. Are you all right? Serafina asks, her voice coming from very far away. You look pale. I set the cup down. My hands are shaking. The fog is thickening, pressing against the inside of my skull, and through it, I feel something cold reaching into my chest. Not from outside, from within. As though something in the tea has opened a door that was meant to stay locked. And now, darkness is pouring through it like water through a cracked dam. What was in that tea? My voice sounds wrong, thin and distant, like someone speaking from the bottom of a well. Nothing harmful. Serafina stands. Her expression has not changed, but her eyes have. The warmth is gone. What remains is flat, calculated, patient. Just a key. For a door you did not know you had. I try to stand. My legs will not obey. The room tilts violently, and I grab the edge of the table, but my fingers cannot grip. The bindings on my wrists are dimming rapidly, the silvery blue light guttering like flames in a rainstorm. I reach for Kalen's echo, for the warmth of the spirit realm, and find nothing. An empty room where a fire used to burn, cold ashes, silence. No. The word comes out as a whisper. No, no, no. Shh. Serafina crouches beside me. Her perfume fills my senses, jasmine and metal, and beneath it, threading through it like a vein of poison through marble, the smell of something that does not belong in this world, something that reeks of the Shadowlands. It will be over soon. The last thing I see before the darkness takes me is the door to the solarium opening. A man steps through it, tall, hooded, eyes like smooth black stones with no light and no mercy in them. Voss. I wake in my room. It is dark. The candles have burned down to stubs, and the fire in the hearth is cold ash. I know something is wrong before I open my eyes because the silence is absolute. Not the comfortable silence of a quiet room. The terrible silence of absence. Of something vital that has been removed and left a void in its place. I lift my wrists. The bindings are dark. Completely dark. No glow. No pulse. No warmth. The woven hair is still there, still merged with my skin, but it lies flat and lifeless against my flesh like something dead, like hair on a corpse. I reach for Kalen. I reach with everything I have, throwing myself against the place where the spirit realm used to be, and it is like throwing yourself against a wall of ice. Nothing. No presence, no echo, no warmth, no love. He is gone. Not dead. He was already dead, but gone. The connection severed. The bridge burned. Kalen, I say his name out loud, then louder. Then I am screaming it, screaming into the dark room, and the sound bounces off the stone walls and comes back to me empty. The door flies open. Bryn rushes in, her face tight with fear. Ilara, what happened? The guards found you unconscious in the solarium 3 hours ago. We brought you here. What did Serafina... Where is Kyle? Bryn's expression breaks. It just breaks, like a plate dropped on stone, and the pieces of her composure scatter across her features. Ilara, something happened. While you were unconscious, the king collapsed in the council chamber. He started convulsing. His skin went gray. The healers cannot determine the cause, but his pulse is weakening. They are saying... She swallows. They are saying it is dark magic, a curse that is eating its way toward his heart. The room contracts around me. The walls pull inward. The air thins until there is not enough to fill my lungs. How long? The healers estimate 3 days, maybe less, if the curse reaches his heart. She does not finish the sentence. She does not need to. I stand. My legs are weak and the room sways, but I stand. I walk to the window and look out at the palace grounds where guards are moving with the urgent, purposeful haste of people preparing for the worst. Torchlight flickers across the courtyard. Voices carry in the night air, tight with fear. 3 days. Kyle has 3 days, and my wrists are dark. My power is gone. The connection to the spirit realm is severed. I am exactly what Seraphina always said I was. An Omega from a backwater pack. Nothing. Nobody. Behind me, Bryn says quietly, "The council is meeting at dawn. Seraphina has formally requested emergency regency. She is arguing that with Kyle incapacitated, someone of noble blood must lead. Elder Theron is listening. Of course he is listening. Of course the council is wavering. Because Seraphina's argument was never just about blood and alliances. It was preparation. Groundwork. She has been building toward this moment since the day I arrived, and I was too focused on my own training to see it. I press my forehead against the cold glass of the window. Below me, somewhere in this palace, Kale is dying, his amber eyes closed, his heartbeat slowing, the curse eating its way through his body like fire through dry wood. And I cannot feel anything. My wrists are dead. My gift is silent. I am alone in my own mind for the first time in months, and the loneliness is so vast it makes my bones ache. Ilara, Bryn's voice is careful, gentle, the voice you use with someone standing on a ledge. What do we do? I stare at my dark wrists, at the lifeless hair woven into my skin, at the emptiness where light used to live. And then, so faintly that I almost miss it, so small that it could be my imagination, a flicker, tiny, barely there, a single pulse of light, not silvery blue, but something warmer, something gold. It lasts less than a second. Then it is gone. But I saw it. I felt it. And I know, with a certainty that comes from somewhere deeper than the spirit realm, deeper than magic, deeper than any gift, that the light did not come from the bindings. It did not come from Kalen's echo. It came from me. I straighten, I turn from the window. I look at Bryn with eyes that are dry and clear and absolutely determined. He told me once that the power does not come from the bindings. It comes from within. I did not understand what he meant. I think I am beginning to. What are you going to do? I press my fist against my chest, right over my heart, where a dead mate bond left a scar and a new, unnamed feeling is starting to burn. 3 days. I have 3 days, and I am done being powerless. I do not sleep that night. Instead, I sit on the cold stone floor of my room with my legs crossed and my palms resting on my knees and my eyes closed, and I go to war with myself. Not the dramatic kind of war. Not the kind with swords and battle cries and enemies you can see. The quiet kind. The kind that happens in the dark spaces between your ribs, where grief lives and fear breeds, and every voice that ever told you that you were nothing echoes on a loop that never stops. You are an Omega. You are worthless. You sleep in barns. You eat scraps. You cannot read. You cannot fight. You are nothing without your gift, and your gift is gone, and now you are nothing again. I let the voices come. I let them fill the room. I let them scream. And then I do something I have never done before. I answer them. I am Ilara. I survived 23 years of neglect. I kept my heart soft when the world gave me every reason to let it harden. I nursed a dying child back to health with herbs I gathered with my own hands. I stood up at my own execution and spoke the truth when silence would have been easier. I walked into a palace where I did not belong, and I learned to read, and I learned to channel power that has not existed in 2 centuries. I am not nothing. I was never nothing. The voices go quiet, not silenced, not destroyed, just quiet. Listening, maybe. The way bullies go still when someone finally stands up to them. I focus on my breathing, in and out, in and out, not matching the rhythm of the bindings, because there is no rhythm anymore. The bindings are dark, dead weight against my wrists. So instead, I match my breathing to my own heartbeat. The one thing no curse can take, the one rhythm that is entirely mine. And I go inward, not toward the spirit realm, not toward Kalen's echo, deeper than that, past the place where magic lives and into the place where I live, the core of me, the part that existed before the bindings, before the gift, before Kalen, before any of it. The part that survived a childhood of cruelty and emerged with enough compassion to save a sick child. The part that looked a king in the eye and said, "Then you had better be a good teacher." That part of me is not magic. It is something older, something that does not need a conduit or a spirit or a dead man's hair to function. It is mine. I breathe into it. I feed it with memory. Not the dark memories, the bright ones. Rena's face when her fever broke and she smiled at me for the first time. Kalen reading poetry by the fire, his voice turning ordinary words into cathedrals. Bryn handing me a blanket and saying, "You are safe here." Kale sitting in my doorway all night, choosing discomfort so that I could sleep without fear. Love, not romantic love, not only that, but the larger kind. The kind that makes you carry a sick child through the rain. The kind that makes you stay awake beside someone who is frightened. The kind that exists between all living things when they choose to see each other. Something stirs inside my chest. Not the cold, electric surge of spirit weaving. Something warmer, gentler. Like the first ray of sunlight breaking through a winter sky. It starts small, a pinpoint of heat behind my sternum, and it grows. Slowly, carefully, like a flame being coaxed from damp kindling. I open my eyes and look down at my wrists. Gold. Not the silvery blue of Kalen's echo. Not the cold flicker of spirit energy channeled through a dead man's hair. Gold. Warm and steady and unmistakably mine. A light that does not pulse with someone else's heartbeat, but with my own. It is faint, barely more than a whisper. But it is there, and it is real. And it does not need anyone's permission or anyone's blessing to exist. I press my palms together and the gold light intensifies. Warmth floods through my hands, up my arms, into my chest. The bindings on my wrists remain dark, the woven hair still lifeless, but around them, threading through the spaces between the dead strands, new light is growing. My light, my power. Tears stream down my face. Not grief this time, something else, something that feels like the first breath after being underwater for too long. I stand. My legs are steady. The room does not sway. Bryn. I open the door. She is there, sitting against the wall in the corridor the way Kale sat in my doorway, loyal and stubborn and refusing to leave. She scrambles to her feet. "Take me to the spirit chamber. Ilara, it is the middle of the night. The guards." Bryn. I hold up my hands. The gold light glows between my fingers. Her eyes widen. "Take me to the spirit chamber. Now." She does not argue again. We move through the palace like ghosts, through corridors lit by guttering torches, and down the spiraling stone stairs into the earth. Bryn keeps watch at the entrance, while I step into the circle carved in the ancient floor. The symbols on the walls are dark. Without my connection to the spirit realm, they should remain dark. They were designed to amplify spirit weaving, and spirit weaving is exactly what Voss destroyed when he severed my link to Kalen's echo. But I am not trying to spirit weave, not the way I was taught. Not through the bindings, not through Kaelin. I am trying something that has no name because no spirit weaver has ever needed to do it before. I kneel. I press my palms flat against the stone floor. I close my eyes and send my own gold light downward, into the rock, into the earth, into the foundations of a chamber built by spirit weavers centuries ago. And I ask, not command, not demand, ask, please, I need help. There is a man dying above me who saved my life. There is a kingdom that will fall to darkness if I fail. I cannot reach you the way I used to. The door was broken, but I am still here. I am still willing. Please, silence. Deep and absolute. Then a hum, low and resonant, vibrating through the stone floor into my knees, up through my spine, into my skull. The symbols on the walls begin to glow. Not the usual silver of spirit energy. Gold. My gold. As though the chamber itself is recognizing a frequency it has never encountered before and choosing to resonate with it. And then they come. Not through the bindings. Not through Kaelin's echo. Through me. Drawn by the gold light like moths to a flame, the ancestral spirits of the Northern Territories pour into the chamber. I feel them arriving one by one, then in clusters, then in waves. Hundreds of them. Warriors and healers and farmers and mothers and children and elders, generation upon generation of wolves who lived and loved and died in this territory, their collected wisdom and strength flowing into the chamber like a river finding the sea. And among them, small and bright and achingly young, a presence that I have never felt before, but recognize instantly from the shape of the grief it left behind. Lyra, Kael's sister. She comes forward. Not with words, spirits do not speak in words, but with images and feelings so vivid they are more real than memory. She was 14, dark hair like her brother, eyes that laughed even when her mouth did not. She loved horses and thunderstorms, and the almond cakes the palace baker made on feast days. And she shows me how she died. A door opening in the dead of night, the northern outpost, where she was visiting with a diplomatic party. A figure in the corridor, familiar, trusted, a cousin she had known her whole life. "Seraphina, what are you doing here?" A smile in return, cold, calculated, and behind Seraphina, emerging from shadows that moved like living things, a man with eyes like polished black stones. Voss. Seraphina opened the gate. Seraphina led the dark mage into the outpost. Seraphina stood and watched while Voss performed the ritual that tore Lyra's spirit from her body, using the child's death to fuel a spell that would take 5 more years to complete. Seraphina did not stumble into alliance with the Shadowlands out of jealousy or desperation. She has been their agent for 5 years. She killed Kael's sister. She planned every step that followed. My arrival was not an obstacle. It was an opportunity. A spirit weaver's power, properly harvested, would give Voss enough energy to open the Shadow Gate permanently, to flood the Northern Territories with darkness. The tea was not just to sever my connection. It was to prepare me, to crack me open like a vessel so that when Voss came to collect, the power would flow freely. Rage fills me. Not the hot, explosive kind, the cold kind, the kind that clarifies, the kind that burns away everything unnecessary and leaves only purpose. I open my eyes. The chamber blazes with gold light. The spirits are with me, not channeled through dead hair, but connected directly, willingly, drawn by a power that asks rather than takes. Bryn. She steps into the chamber. Her face is pale in the golden glow, but her eyes are steady. Seraphina killed Lyra. The words land like stones in still water. Bryn's expression does not change. Or rather, it changes completely. But what it changes into is not shock. It is confirmation, the look of someone who always suspected but never had proof. "I will kill her myself," Bryn says quietly. "No. The council needs to see. Everyone needs to see. Can you get me into the council chamber?" The emergency session begins at dawn. That is less than 2 hours from now. Then we have less than 2 hours. Let us move. We climb the stairs. The gold light fades from the chamber behind us, but does not fade from me. It pulses beneath my skin, warm and steady, a second heartbeat that syncs with the first. I am not the woman who descended those stairs an hour ago. I am not the woman Voss tried to break. I am something new, something that has no precedent. A spirit weaver who does not need a conduit because she has become the conduit herself. The council chamber is a vast circular room with tiered stone seating and a raised platform at its center. When Bryn and I enter through the servants' passage, the session has already begun. Elder Theron sits at the head of the council table, his face drawn with worry. Lady Isolde and 6 other council members flank him, and at the center of the platform, standing where the king would stand, is Seraphina. She is magnificent. I will give her that. Dressed in mourning gray as though Kale is already dead, her hair swept back in an austere style that makes her look older, more authoritative, more like a queen. She is speaking in a voice calibrated to project calm competence. The king's condition worsens by the hour. The healers have confirmed that dark magic is involved, but cannot identify the source. In his absence, the kingdom requires stable leadership. I propose emergency regency under my authority until... Until what, Seraphina? My voice carries across the chamber. Every head turns. Seraphina's composure fractures for just 1 second, a crack in the mask so brief that only someone looking for it would see, and then it reassembles. "Ilara, you should be resting. The trauma you experienced yesterday. The trauma you inflicted." I walk forward. Bryn flanks me, her hand on her sword. The council members watch with wide eyes as I mount the platform and stand face to face with the woman who poisoned me, cursed the man I am beginning to love, and murdered a 14-year-old girl. I do not know what you are talking about. Then let me show them. I turn to the council. I raise my hands. The gold light erupts from my palms, brighter than anything the spirit chamber ever produced, and it fills the room like sunrise. The council members gasp. Seraphina takes a step back. "This is impossible," she says, and for the first time, fear leaks through her control. "Voss severed your connection. Your power is gone." My connection to Kalen's echo is gone, but my power was never his. It was always mine. I just did not know it yet. I reach into the spirit realm, not through the bindings, through myself, through the gold light that is as much a part of me as my bones and my blood. And I find Lyra, patient, waiting, ready to tell her story to the people who need to hear it most. Elder Theron, council members, what you are about to see are the memories of Lyra, sister of your king, who was murdered 5 years ago at the northern outpost. These memories show who was responsible. I release them. The gold light projects the images into the air above the platform like a painting made of light and shadow. Every person in the room sees it. Seraphina at the northern outpost, Seraphina opening the gate, Seraphina leading Voss to Lyra's room, Seraphina watching while a 14-year-old girl died screaming. The images are vivid, detailed, undeniable. They play across Seraphina's face as she stands frozen, and the council watches as 5 years of lies unravel in the space of 60 seconds. No, Seraphina shakes her head. No, this is a trick. Spirit manipulation. She is fabricating. These are a dead child's memories, Seraphina. A child you murdered. They cannot be fabricated. The council knows this. The ancient laws are clear on the testimony of the dead. Elder Theron rises. His face is the color of old parchment. Seraphina of House Ashcroft. Is there truth in what we have witnessed? Seraphina's mask shatters. What lies beneath it is not the cold calculation I expected. It is rage. Pure, burning, uncontrolled rage. The rage of someone who has spent years building a careful structure and is watching it collapse. You have no idea what is coming, she hisses. The Shadowlands will swallow this kingdom whole. I chose the winning side. I chose survival. Voss! She screams the name like a command, and the far wall of the council chamber explodes inward. Stone and dust fill the air. Council members dive for cover. Through the breach, stepping over rubble like a man crossing a threshold into a room he already owns, comes Voss. He is taller than I remember. His black, pupilless eyes sweep the chamber with the bored assessment of a predator surveying prey that is not worthy of the effort. Behind him, pouring through the breach like smoke through a crack, come the shadow soldiers. Dark figures that move without sound, their forms shifting and unstable, more darkness than flesh. Dozens of them, then scores. The sound of combat erupts from the corridors beyond, steel against something that is not steel, screams mixing with the wet, wrong sounds of dark magic meeting living bodies. The invasion has begun. Fenric! Bryn draws her sword and charges toward the breach where the captain of the guard is already fighting, his blade a blur of silver against the shadow soldiers. Blood runs from a gash across his forehead, but he does not yield. The royal guards form a line, shoulder to shoulder, holding the breach with the desperate courage of men who know they are outmatched. Voss ignores them. He ignores Seraphina. He walks toward me with the unhurried patience of someone collecting a debt, and his empty black eyes lock onto my wrists where the gold light pulses. Interesting, he says, and his voice sounds like it is coming from the bottom of a grave. You found a way around the severance. I underestimated you. That was my error. It will not happen again. He raises his hand and darkness erupts from his palm. Not shadow, not absence of light. Something alive and hungry that devours the air between us and strikes my chest like a battering ram. I stagger. The gold light flickers. The spirits around me recoil from the impact, their warmth pushed back by a cold so absolute it makes winter feel like summer. I plant my feet. I push back. Gold light against living darkness. And for a moment we are locked in a stalemate, two forces pressing against each other with everything they have. The council chamber shakes. The floor cracks. Dust rains from the ceiling. But Voss is stronger. He has been building power for years, feeding on stolen spirits and harvested souls. And I have had my own power for less than 12 hours. Inch by inch, the darkness advances. The cold creeps up my arms. My vision narrows. And I understand, with the clarity that comes only at the edge of defeat, what I have to do. The bindings on my wrists. Kalen's hair, still woven into my skin, still carrying the faintest residue of his echo. Not enough to channel, not enough to communicate, but enough, if I am willing to let it go completely, to fuel one final surge. the last ember of a fire that burned for 3 beautiful years. If I do this, he is truly gone. No echo, no fragment, no warmth when I meditate, no sense of his presence watching over me. The bridge will not just be crossed, it will be burned, and I will walk the rest of my life without even the ghost of the man who taught me that I was worth loving. Kaylin, I whisper, and the name is both a prayer and a farewell. I need to let you go, not because I want to, because the people I love are dying and you are the only ammunition I have left. The bindings stir, the faintest pulse, not light, warmth, like a hand pressing against mine through a wall of ice, and I feel him one final time, not words, not images, just love, vast and gentle and completely at peace, and underneath it, woven through it like a golden thread through dark silk, the same message he sent me in the spirit chamber. Live, truly live. I close my eyes. I breathe in. I open my hands, and I let him go. The bindings on my wrists flare one last time. Not silvery blue, not gold, white, pure, blinding, absolute white. The color of every sunrise they watched together, and every moonlit night they ran through the forest, and every quiet morning he read her poetry while she pretended to understand the words. The color of 3 years of love compressed into a single devastating moment of release. The energy detonates. It does not hit Voss. It moves through him. It moves through the shadow soldiers. It moves through the walls of the council chamber and the corridors beyond, and the courtyard and the gates, expanding outward in a sphere of white light that touches every dark thing in its path and unmakes it. Shadow soldiers dissolve like smoke in wind. The darkness pouring from Voss's hands shatters. The dark mage himself staggers backward, his black eyes widening for the first time, because something inside him, the core of stolen power that fuels his existence, is being burned away by a light that is composed entirely of love and loss and the willingness to sacrifice the most precious thing you have to protect the people who remain. Voss screams. It is an ugly sound, a sound without dignity or power, the shriek of something that has lived in darkness so long it cannot survive the light. His form wavers. Cracks appear in his skin, lines of white light spreading like fractures in ice. He reaches for Seraphina, for anyone, but there is no one and nothing left to hold him together. He breaks. He shatters. He is gone. The white light fades. The chamber goes quiet. Dust settles. Through the breach in the wall, I can see the courtyard where shadow soldiers are dissolving into nothing, their dark forms evaporating like morning fog under a merciless sun. I look down at my wrists. The woven hair is still there, but it is different now. Pale, almost translucent. The last physical trace of Kaylin emptied of everything it held. A shell. A memory of a memory. He is gone. Truly gone. And the grief that fills me is so immense I think it might swallow me whole. But it does not consume me. It does not destroy me, because underneath the grief, burning steady and sure, is the gold light. My light. Stronger now than before, as though the act of letting go cleared a space for something new to grow. Seraphina tries to run. She makes it 3 steps before Bryn intercepts her, sword at her throat, and the look on Bryn's face suggests that the only reason Seraphina's head is still attached to her body is because justice requires witnesses. On your knees, Bryn says, and her voice carries the same quiet, absolute authority that I have heard from Kale. The authority of someone who will not say it twice. Seraphina kneels. The guards close around her. Elder Theron approaches, his face a mask of cold fury. Seraphina of House Ashcroft, for the murder of Princess Lyra, for conspiracy with the Shadowlands, for the attempted assassination of the king, for treason against the Northern Territories. You are stripped of all titles, all lands, all rights of blood and birth. Seraphina's composure is gone. What remains is a woman on her knees in a ruined chamber, surrounded by the consequences of every choice she ever made, with nowhere left to hide. You will be marked with the traitor's brand. Theron continues. You will be exiled to the northern wastes. No pack will shelter you. No wolf will speak your name. You will live as rogue until the end of your days, which I expect will be short and cold and lonely. You cannot do this. Seraphina's voice cracks. I am of noble blood. You are nothing. I say it quietly, without anger, without satisfaction, with the simple, factual clarity of someone who knows exactly what that word means because it has been thrown at her for 23 years, and she has finally learned that it is not a description, it is a choice. And Seraphina chose it for herself. The guards haul her away. Her screams echo down the corridor and fade into silence. I do not watch her go. I am already moving, running through the damaged corridors, past guards and healers and servants who press themselves against the walls as I pass, my gold light blazing, my bare feet slapping against stone until I reach the king's chambers. 2 healers stand at the door. They step aside without a word. Kale lies on the bed. His skin is gray. His breathing is shallow. Each inhale a labored rattle that sounds like it might be the last. The dark magic that Voss planted in him is still working, still eating its way toward his heart, because the caster's death does not automatically undo the curse. It has to be drawn out, healed, replaced with something stronger than the poison. I climb onto the bed beside him. I take his hand. It is cold, so cold. And his fingers, those strong, capable fingers that held reins and turned pages and traced letters on a page while teaching me to read, do not close around mine. Kyle. I press my forehead to his. I am here. I know you cannot hear me, but I am here, and I am not leaving. And I swear on every star in the sky that I am going to bring you back. I close my eyes. I send my gold light into him, not through the bindings, not through Kalen's echo, through my own hands, my own heart, my own stubborn, relentless refusal to lose someone else I love. The darkness inside him fights back. It is a sentient thing, Voss's final gift, and it wraps around Kale's heart like a fist and squeezes. I feel him slipping, feel the thread of his life thinning. So I follow him. I leave my body. I dive into the dark space where the curse has trapped him, a place that is not the spirit realm, but something colder, a void between life and death where consciousness goes when the body can no longer hold it. It is terrifying, lightless and formless and so cold that the concept of warmth seems like a fairy tale. But I carry my own light. I find him in the deepest part of the void, not the Alpha King, not the powerful, commanding ruler of 12 packs, just a man, sitting in the dark, alone, the way I was alone in my barn for all those years, the way everyone is alone when the world strips away every title and every role and every expectation and leaves you with nothing but the question, who are you, really? Kale. He looks up. His amber eyes are dim, nearly extinguished, but they find me. They see me. Even here, in the darkest place either of us has ever been, he sees me. Ilara. His voice is a whisper. You should not be here. The void will trap you. Then it will have to trap both of us, because I am not leaving without you. I extend my hand. The gold light blazes from my palm, pushing back the darkness. He stares at it, at me. What is that? It is not spirit weaving. No, it is me. Just me. It turns out that is enough. He takes my hand, and I pull. The void resists. The darkness surges, wrapping around us, trying to drag us both under. But the gold light is stronger because it is not powered by a single echo or a single bond. It is powered by every act of love I have ever committed. Every herb I brewed for a sick child. Every night I held a dying man and told him he was loved. Every time I chose kindness when cruelty would have been easier. Every morning I woke up in a barn and decided to survive one more day. That is not magic. That is something older. Something no dark mage can steal because it does not live in your wrists or your blood or your birthright. It lives in your choices. I pull. He holds on. The gold light expands, and we break through. Kale's eyes open. Real eyes. In the real world. Amber with flecks of gold. And they are focused on my face with an intensity that makes everything else disappear. I saw Lyra, he whispers. His voice is raw, wrecked, but his hand tightens around mine. In the void. She was there. She told me what Seraphina did. She told me. His voice breaks. She told me you avenged her. The council saw everything. Seraphina has been stripped of her titles and exiled. Voss is destroyed. The Shadow Army is gone. He closes his eyes. A single tear runs down his temple into his dark hair. When he opens them again, the grief is still there, but it is no longer alone. Something else lives beside it now. Something fierce and bright and aimed directly at me. You saved me. You saved me first. He sits up. The color is returning to his skin. The healers will want to examine him, will want to fuss and test and confirm, but right now he does not care about healers. He does not care about anything except the woman sitting beside him on the bed, with gold light fading from her palms and tears streaming down her face. He stands. I stand with him, and I realize we are not alone. The door is open. The corridor beyond is filled with guards and servants and council members who heard the commotion and came running. Bryn is there. Fenric, bandaged and bruised but alive. Elder Theron. Lady Isolde. Dozens of witnesses to whatever happens next. Kale looks at them. Then he looks at me. And the Alpha King of the Northern Territories, ruler of 12 packs, commander of the largest wolf army on the continent, a man who has never bowed to anyone or anything in his life, drops to one knee before me. The corridor goes silent, every breath held, every eye fixed on the impossible image of their king kneeling before an Omega from a backwater pack who is standing in bare feet and borrowed clothes with tear tracks on her face and gold light fading from her wrists. You saved this kingdom, he says, and his voice carries. He makes it carry. He wants every person in that corridor to hear. You saved your king. You defeated an enemy that swords could not touch. You stood when stronger wolves would have fallen. And you did it not with noble blood or ancient birthright or political alliance. He looks up at me, and his amber eyes are burning. You did it with a heart so full of love that darkness could not survive in its presence. I am shaking. My hands tremble at my sides, and my vision blurs, and I do not trust my legs to hold me. From this day forward, Kale says, no one will question your worth. No one will doubt your place. You are not an Omega. You are not a charity case. You are not a curiosity or an experiment or a weapon. His hand reaches up and takes mine, and where our skin meets, the gold light flares one final time, warm and bright and certain. You are my equal. You are my partner. You are the reason I am alive. And if you will let me, I will spend the rest of my life making sure the world sees what I saw the moment I found you kneeling in that rain. I pull him to his feet because a king should not kneel. Not even for me. Especially not for me. I pull him up and he rises, and we stand face to face in the crowded corridor with an audience we did not ask for and do not need. And I realize that I am no longer afraid. Not of him. Not of them. Not of the future. Not of anything. Get up, I whisper, and I am laughing through my tears. Get up, you impossible man. He rises. He pulls me against his chest, and the corridor erupts in a sound I have never heard directed at me before. Applause. The days that follow move with a strange and gentle rhythm, like water finding its way downhill after a storm. The palace repairs begin. Stonemasons fill the breach in the council chamber wall. Servants sweep away rubble and dust and the last traces of shadow residue that cling to corners like cobwebs made of bad dreams. The kingdom exhales. Kale recovers faster than the healers expect. Within 2 days, he is walking the corridors, meeting with his guard captains, reviewing border reports. Within 3, he is back in the council chamber, standing where he always stands, and the color has returned to his skin, and the authority has returned to his voice, and the only evidence that he nearly died is a faint tremor in his left hand that he hides by keeping it at his side, or, when he forgets to hide it, by reaching for mine. He reaches for mine often. The council convenes on the 7th day after the battle. I stand before them wearing the deep green tunic that Kale gave me on my first morning at the palace, because it still fits and because it reminds me of who I was when I arrived. Not who I am now, who I was. A woman with nothing who was given a chance. Elder Theron speaks first. He looks older than he did a week ago. Grief and guilt will do that to a person. Elara, Spirit Weaver, Savior of the Northern Territories. He pauses, and I watch him struggle with the words, because the last time he stood in this chamber, he was considering Seraphina's bid for regency, and I was locked in my room with dead wrists and a breaking heart. We owe you a debt that cannot be repaid. I did not do it for debt. No, you did not. Which is precisely why the debt is so heavy. I step forward. The gold light on my wrists pulses gently, warm and steady as a candle flame in a room without wind. I have learned, in the days since the battle, that this light responds to intention rather than emotion. When I reach for the spirit realm now, it opens like a door that was always unlocked, and the ancestors come willingly, drawn not by the echo of a dead man's love, but by a living woman's compassion. Elder Theron, your grandfather Wilhelm served as advisor to 3 kings. He had a scar across his left palm from a training accident when he was 12. He is here. He says you have been too cautious for too long, and that caution born of fear is not wisdom. It is cowardice dressed in respectable clothing. Theron's eyes go wide. His hand moves involuntarily to his own left palm, where a similar scar marks the skin. How could you possibly know that? Those details are not in any records. Because he told me. He is standing beside you right now. And he is proud of you, even though he thinks you need to be braver. I turn to Lady Isolde. She is already crying because she knows what is coming. I think she has been waiting for it for years. Lady Isolde, your mother wants you to know that she forgives you. The argument you had the night before she died, The things you said that you have carried like stones in your chest ever since. She heard them and she forgave them before her last breath. She says you were always her favorite, and she is sorry she never told you. Isolde's composure breaks, not dramatically, quietly, the way strong women break, with their shoulders shaking and their hands pressed over their mouths and their eyes squeezed shut against a grief that has finally been given permission to heal. One by one, I move through the council, a message for each elder, a connection restored between the living and the dead, private words, specific details, things that no stranger could know and no magic could fabricate. By the time I finish, every member of the council has tears on their face, and the resistance that might have existed, the doubt, the suspicion, the ancient prejudice against Omegas and outsiders, has dissolved like frost in morning sun. They stand as one. They bow. "We accept your queen, your majesty," Theron says, and his voice is steady again, stronger than before. "With full hearts, and without reservation." Kale's hand finds the small of my back. His touch is warm through the fabric of my tunic, and I can feel the slight tremor in his fingers and the absolute certainty beneath it. "Good," he says, "because the wedding is in 3 days." I turn to stare at him. 3 days? I have been patient long enough. You have been conscious for a week. Exactly. Long enough. The wedding is held under the full moon in the palace gardens. Bryn helps me dress. The gown is silver and blue, the colors of the spirit realm, and it flows around my body like water made solid. The bindings on my wrists are visible, deliberately so. The woven hair has faded to translucent threads, Kalen's physical trace nearly gone, but around them and through them, my own gold light pulses steady and bright. They are not something to hide anymore. They are not shame or abomination or dark magic. They are the visible proof of a love that transcended death and a power that was born from grief and grew into something luminous. The gardens glow. Bioluminescent flowers that Kale showed me during our evening walks, the walks he took me on after reading lessons, when the library grew too warm and the space between our shoulders grew too small and we needed air and moonlight to cool the heat. Building between us, line the path to the altar. Their pale blue light mixes with the gold from my wrists and the silver of the full moon, until the entire garden shimmers like something from a dream. Kale stands at the altar in formal black. The crimson wolf insignia gleams at his chest. His dark hair is unbound, falling around a face that I once thought was incapable of softness, and have since learned reserves its softness exclusively for me. He watches me walk toward him, and his expression does something I will never forget. The authority falls away. The control falls away. The king falls away. And what remains is a man looking at a woman with such unguarded, devastating tenderness that every person in the garden holds their breath because they are witnessing something private and sacred and too real for public consumption. I reach him. He takes my hands. The high priestess conducts the ceremony, binding our hands with silver cord in the ancient tradition. Her voice rises and falls with the ritual words that have joined wolves for 1,000 years. Do you, Kale, Alpha King of the Northern Territories, take this woman as your queen and mate? I do. From this day until my last breath, she is mine to protect, to cherish, to honor. And do you, Elara, spirit weaver, survivor, defender of the realm, take this man as your king and mate? I look at Kale. at his amber eyes burning with a fire that matches the gold light on my wrists, at the hands holding mine with a gentleness that belies their strength, at the man who sat in my doorway all night because I had a nightmare, who taught me to read by firelight, who knelt before me in a crowded corridor and declared my worth to everyone who would listen. I do. From this day until my last breath, he is mine to stand beside, to support, to love. Then by the power of the moon and the ancient laws, I declare you bound. Alpha King, you may claim your queen. He pulls me close. The kiss is claiming and tender at once, a contradiction that somehow makes perfect sense, the way everything about us makes sense despite the fact that nothing should. His canines extend and he marks my neck, the bite gentle but unmistakable, and the moment his mark takes, I feel it. A new bond, different from the mate bond with Kaylin, but no less powerful. That bond was fate and instinct, and the blind chemistry of wolves recognizing their match. This one is choice. Deliberate, conscious, earned through trial and pain, and the kind of trust that can only be built by two people who have seen each other at their worst and decided to stay. Mine, the bond says. Yours, I answer. The crowd erupts in cheers. Months pass. I settle into the role of queen with a confidence that surprises everyone, including me. I use my gift to advise Kale on threats both physical and supernatural. I establish a sanctuary for displaced Omegas in the eastern wing of the palace, a place where no one sleeps in barns or eats scraps or is told they are invisible. I hire teachers. I stock a library. I make sure every child who walks through those doors learns to read. Because I remember what it was like to stare at a page full of letters and see nothing but proof of my own inadequacy. And I go back for Rena. I ride to the Silver Pine territory with a royal guard escort, and I walk into the pack grounds that I once crawled out of on my knees. And I find her. She is standing behind the same woodshed where I found her the first time, but she is not sick now. She is just small and quiet and waiting, with those enormous brown eyes that see too much for a child and trust too little for someone her age. Rena. She looks up. She sees me, and her face transforms. I kneel in the dirt, in my fine clothes, in front of the guards and the pack members who once watched me dragged to an execution platform, and I open my arms. She runs. She hits me like a small, warm cannonball, and her arms wrap around my neck so tight I can barely breathe, and she whispers, "You came back." "I promised," I say, and I always keep my promises. I carry her to the horse. I take her home. 1 year later, I stand in the palace gardens in the soft light of early evening. My hand rests on the small swell of my stomach. The gold light on my wrists pulses with its familiar steady rhythm, but there are new threads now. Faint and delicate and flickering with a light that is neither gold nor silver, but something in between. They pulse in time with the tiny heartbeat growing inside me. Kale comes up behind me. His arms wrap around my waist, his hands resting over mine on my belly. His chin settles on my shoulder, and his breath is warm against my ear. "How are you feeling?" "Perfect. Absolutely perfect." I look down at my wrists, at the translucent remnants of Kaylin's hair, faded now to gossamer threads that catch the light like spider silk at dawn, at the gold light that is mine alone, at the new, nameless light that belongs to the child who is not yet born, but is already loved beyond measure. I used to think my life was over when Kaylin died, that I would never matter to anyone again. Kale turns me to face him, his amber eyes, flecked with gold, hold mine with the same intensity they held that first night in the rain. The same look he gave me that first night, but deeper now, layered with everything we have survived together. You matter to everyone, to me, to our kingdom, to every Omega who walks through the sanctuary doors and learns for the first time that they are not invisible. To Rena, to our child, he presses his forehead to mine. You are the strongest person I know, Ilara, and I thank the moon every day that I found you kneeling in that rain. Best thing that ever happened to me was almost being executed. Do not joke about that. It still makes me want to go back and dismantle that pack stone by stone. You are very bloodthirsty for a king. Only when it comes to protecting what is mine. Possessive. Absolutely. We stand together in the fading light, Alpha King and Spirit Weaver Queen, bound not by fate or magic or ancient law, but by choice. The most powerful force in any world. Behind us, in the palace, I can hear Rena laughing. She is playing with the royal hounds in the great hall, her small voice echoing off stone walls that once intimidated me and now feel like the bones of a home I built with my own hands. And on my wrists, the lights pulse, gold and silver and that new, unnamed color that grows brighter every day. A constellation of love mapped onto my skin, past and present and future, woven together, inseparable. I am no longer the powerless Omega sleeping in barns. I am Ilara, Queen, Spirit Weaver, Mother, Protector of the Forgotten, and I am finally, completely, irrevocably home. That night, after Kale has fallen asleep with his hand resting on my belly and the palace is quiet around us, I dream. The dream is vivid, more vivid than any I have had before, and in it I see my child. Not the idea of a child. The child, standing in a field of white flowers under a sky filled with stars, looking up at me with eyes that stop my heart. One eye is amber, flecked with gold. Kale's eye. One eye is silvery blue, the exact color that Kalen's echo used to glow on my wrists. The child smiles, and the ground beneath their feet blooms with light, gold and silver and colors that have no name, spreading outward like ripples in a pond until the entire field is luminous. I wake with my hand on my stomach and my wrists blazing so bright they illuminate the entire bedroom. Kale stirs beside me, mumbles something, pulls me closer, and far to the north, in the frozen reaches of the Shadowlands where light goes to die, something ancient lifts its head. It has felt the spark, the new power, the child who carries the blood of a king and the blessing of the dead and a light that has never existed before in any world. It opens its eyes, and it begins to move.